Got it.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's great to see everyone. We've got a nice audience here and a few folks on Zoom, so it's great to see everyone. We're going to get things started. We have an action-packed meeting today, so we're going to rush through a couple of these things. Action-packed, that's right. We're all going to fight. So let's see here. Liz, can I have you? Sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you wouldn't mind leading us in the pledge. Oh, sorry, there's no flag. So now I'm really putting you on the spot. That's all right. All right. And to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I think, Joanne, you were going to be doing our invocation today, please.
Whoa. You never feel short till you have to do that. I'm going to recite the peace prayer. So if you would join me in prayer, please. Let us pray that strength and courage abundant be given to all who work for a world of reason and understanding, that the good that lies in every man's heart may day by day be magnified, that men will come to see more clearly, not that which divides them, but that which unites them, that each hour may bring us closer to final victory, not of nation over nation, but of men over his own errors and weaknesses, that the true spirit of mankind, its joy, beauty, hope, may live among us, that the blessings of peace be ours, the peace to build and grow, to live in harmony and sympathy with others, and to plan for the future with confidence. Amen.
Thank you so much, Joanne. If you could all take a seat, and we will get started by, I know we have Mike joining us again today as our speaker, but if there's any visiting guests and Rotarians or Rotarians. Pete? Yep. Wait, let me get you a mic. Hold on.
I'd like to welcome my good friend Rose. Rose is a retired second grade teacher from Cohasset, Massachusetts, just south of Boston, but she's been traveling. She's been to Florida, Hawaii, and now Arizona. She's been celebrating her 39th birthday for the past 6 weeks.
Thanks so much for joining us, Rose. All right. I think that does anyone on Zoom that is a guest or a visiting Rotarian. If not, we will proceed. We have a few announcements today. So Barbara, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to start with you. Yeah, come on up. Well, we've got a few, so I figured it would be, yeah, we've got another presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Pablo, can I ask you to load up my PowerPoint? Believe it or not, I'm usually got a 25 slide PowerPoint, but today it's only 6. So, and it's 3 topics, so it's really quick. And as soon as it's up here, I want to take a moment to recognize a wonderful friend and Rotarian who died a couple of weeks ago. Whoops, what happened to you, Bob? His name is Bob Salvatore. He is there on the left, and he is with his wife, Sally Drachman, who is an honorary Rotarian of our own club. We knew Bob well through Sally, of course, but also because he was the president of the Ajijic, Mexico Rotary Club. And we went down in 2010 with a group of 23 of us and several other friendship exchange afterwards. And we did over 10 projects and 1 global grant with this group. And it was an amazing time. In fact, I'm wearing today my Ajijic shirt that you love to get when you're down there, and my pin that he gave to all of us at the end, which is a Rotary pin with an American flag on one side and the Mexican flag on the other. And this is a man who was filled with love for everyone. He is someone who could have built peace even between the people who were warring today. I will miss him a great deal. If you'll pass to the next slide, I just want you to show you where he came. This is Mexico down there where you see the little round circle. That is Lake Chapala. It is the remnants of what used to be a lake that covered almost all of the middle part of Mexico. And it is a beautiful place. Next slide, please. And this particular picture shows the lake with the mountains on the other side. And this was where we had the pleasure of meeting our Rotarians and staying in Ajijic in Lake Chapala. But let me tell you, if you just scratch the surface on the other side of the lake or behind where this picture is taken, there is immense poverty, many indigenous people. And Bob was working hard to make things happen for them. And we really, really enjoyed sharing. Next slide, please. This is a picture of all of us. Pete, I think you'll see yourself in that. And we see Bob Gunderson, and we see Jeff Nordenson, or excuse me, Jeff Derrickson, thank you. And so many of us, Roger Biven. So this was us literally working with the club in Ajijic to do a thrift shop, which later on received donated clothes, sold them, and covered the food costs for literally providing for 50 to 100 abandoned children. I show you this one to celebrate Bob's life, to say what he started. And I also want to anticipate for you that we have been asked whether or not next year, where we could celebrate our 10th year with Tepewa, because Tepewa is this project grown some. We'd like to go back with another friendship exchange. So I'll be back with you later. So let me just invite you to think about that. It's a wonderful small trip, but today I just want to remember our friend, Robert Salvatore, and I hope you will keep him and Sally in your heart at this time. And another topic is the next slide, and it has to do with another effort we did in Mexico, this time in northern Sonora. This is Dr. Betsy Pettit, who is administering vacunas and vaccines and various other things to the indigenous people way up in the mountains. We were literally, the closest pueblo was 2.5 hours. The farthest one was 14 hours. And this grant closed in 2021, but it took us a full 1.5 years to get the final report in. And we finally got our acceptance yesterday, and that had to do with COVID, not to do with us. Andy was right on top of the ball and got all of my financial information in. Thank you, Andy. But it was hard for the people in Mexico where COVID was more extensive. And I just want to tell you the one thing that when I think about Catalina Rotary and being involved in foreign places and crossing bridges they will not build, doing things for people they will never meet, I have to remind you that right now, up in the village of well, can't even remember, Guajaray, I guess, many hours away from Alamos, is Frank Preston's walker that he donated on that first trip down there. This was left over from his wife who needed it at the time. And right now it is up there wandering around in the most remote part of it. And I want to tell you that that is a wonderful memory for me. And now to the last of my topics, I want to show you what is involved in our Let's Can polio drive. We have been working on this from August and we just finished. And one of the blessings of this is not only collecting the cans, but getting to recycle them. And I got to know those people really well. They got to see me coming. They dashed out to help me. And this is a picture of one of the container trucks. And on it is a bag of 112 pounds, the one on the left. And I just wanted to tell you that we were filling those bags. Now, Pat Egbert, to his credit, he did want me to save all the bags. He even suggested Jeff Hamstra might like to put them in his, yard and save them to the end. But fortunately for Jeff and all of us, all those bees and all those bags, we did not have to recycle all at once. So every month I got to go. And I want to show you then the next one to tell you how we did. Now we have 538 pounds of cans that we collected here at our club meetings, at the district conference, and of course at the rodeo. And we earned from that $537.15. Actually, not an awful lot of money for all that work. But when you have Bill Gates behind you and he says, I'll give you 3 to 1, we just built $1,611 worth of contribution to polio. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And may you go away with a memory of all those bags and enjoy. Thank you.
That was great, Barbara. Thank you so much. Both for the can drive, but then also for the grant. I know that you and Andy and there's several others that have worked on that and finally bring it to a close. It was very nice, and so thank you also for the nice words there about Bob. So I appreciate that. And let me see. We have a few other things here. Let me see. Where do I go here? Before anyone forgets, Dove Mountain Casino Night. So that is March 18th, Friday. And it's $65 a person. So if you want to support another Rotary Club, they have their funds are going towards their youth services, and sounds like a fun event. So $65 a person. You can buy tickets on their website at dovemountainrotary.org. So yeah, if you want to support them and their projects, please do so. We have also, as was mentioned last week, Rotary is becoming pretty involved with all the terrible things that are happening over in Eastern Europe. And so there's some emails that have been going out from the foundation. So Irv was great enough, and all of you stepped up just so quickly to raise funds for shelter boxes. So we have enough for 7 shelter boxes, and that includes a $400 contribution from the foundation itself. So hats off to all of you for being able to kind of on moment's notice come up with all of that. So that's going to do a lot of good. The Rotary Foundation has also put out some information about what to do if you want to have a more direct support for what's going on out there, and especially the refugees. There's a lot of issues going on in Ukraine, obviously. So they said don't send money towards the clubs out there. But if you are interested in getting money into Rotarians' hands, Poland and Romania are the places that you want to look at. And so keep that in mind. I'm sure it's going to be, unfortunately, an ongoing issue. Let me turn things over to Michael. You've got an announcement.
Thanks, Jimmy. The board on Tuesday voted to pay for our volunteers who volunteered at the rodeo. And then also today, our board also voted that all Rotarian volunteers will be paid for as well and covered. So if you volunteered at the rodeo, you're covered at the event we're having at Locale on Sunday, March 27th from 11 to 1 p.m. Everybody's welcome. You can bring your spouse as well if you like, or family members. We're going to have a really good time. We're going to have a bocce tournament. Pat, would you like to explain the bocce tournament to everybody?
Just a way to have fun and make a little money for the foundation. Start again. Hi, my name is Pat Egbert. There'll be 2 bocce courts, and we'll try to have a single elimination tournament. The top 2 teams will win 10% and 5%. The rest will go into the club foundation or the club wherever the board decides it goes. And there'll be a brunch served, drinks on your own. So it's a nice way to say thank you to the volunteers and to do something a little different. Oh, sure. What bocce is you throw these round balls to try it. It's sort of like it's like
Shuffleboard, like shuffleboard on the ground.
curling.
Or curling.
Except you don't roll it on the ground. You don't roll it on. You throw it in the air, and you try to bounce your balls closest to there's another name for to a little ball that is Plasico or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
the little ball.
The panini, it's called the Polina. Yeah, the Polina.
Locale. It's at Locale,
Broadway
and Alvernon. It's just north of Broadway on Alvernon. The old Pueblo Grill. It's real nice.
It'll be in the wagon wheel coming up, and also be on the Facebook event Evite as well.
There are flyers on your table, so if you're
Sign up.
thinking of, go ahead and so that we can get an idea, so we can tell the restaurant so that we'll have plenty of food appropriately prepared.
Yeah, all the food and everything will be provided. And the guests, you'll be paying $20 for your guest. Unless they volunteered. That's right. So sign up. Any other questions?
Yeah, this should be a good event. Great food and good company. So it's the right price if you volunteered. So that's another reason to get volunteering next year. So thank you for Michael and Pat for putting that together. We're excited. So March 27th. Let me see here. I think the last announcement that I have here is a little bit more of a formal thing. I don't know how formal I want to get, but as you all know, this club has a lot of history here with district leadership. And so it's my honor to announce that next year is the start of well, we already knew this, but Anita will be taking charge of the district next year. So starting July 1st. And so what better way to start things off by doing a little bit of a celebratory installation ceremony. And so that's going to be taking place. Anita, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it is set for June 25th and 26th, and it's going to be at the Tucson Marriott near the U of A. And so there's going to be, that's a Saturday and a Sunday, and it's an afternoon registration with a reception on Saturday. And then we're going to be doing there's going to be the college district governors meeting, a brunch, and then the formal installation on Sunday. So I think I want to put that all on your radar so that you can all schedule and attend. I think it would be a great way to represent our club and to support Anita as she takes on the thankless task of leading the bunch of us here in the district. So it's $65 for the weekend, $45 for the brunch and installation, and $25 for the reception. So all those details I think are on the district website. And there's also some block of rooms that are available there at the hotel if you want to go a little bit wild and not have to Uber. You can do it at the Tucson Marriott. Yep. I guess the district conference is in September, but this is going to be taking place in June. And so we have some of your visual information. So I don't know, we want to be there to support you, Anita, for all the great things that you're going to do, but I don't know if you want to say, maybe announce your approach this year, your slogan, your logo.
Well, sure. I'm learning that anytime you ask me, district governors to talk, they are willing to do so.
Right.
At any rate, but I think, I really want to give a great shout out to Jeff Nordenson for helping me and Tom Robertson too, to bring my theme together. But I started with, inspire, empower, engage, and enjoy. And I had it all kind of written down. And so Tom says, oh, well, that looks like I, to the third power. And I said, oh, well, now that works for me, doesn't it? And then, working with Jeff, we ended up, it says inspire equals empowerment, or empower, engage, and enjoy. And so, and I've worked with Emmett, what's Emmett's last name? He's with CBART. What is it? Zimmeroff. And he worked with the design and everything. So it's been prepared in the lovely purple, green, and white, and I'm just really pleased with it. So you'll see it with part of the advertisement for the installation. So looking forward to it. So
it's not a sign of things to come, but it's on the computer right now. It just doesn't want to get on the screen. So we have the logo all already.
Oh, there you go. Oh,
there
okay.
it is.
So yes, put together. So
yeah, so we're excited for you, Anita. This is great. Thank you for representing us, and obviously thank you for leading the district. So make sure to write it down and to be there and support Anita. Now, is there also an announcement of some of your support staff that I don't think the club knew about, of other assistants?
They don't know about? Oh, okay, that's right. Because, you got to take some of your family with you, when you're doing these things. And so joining me from this family will be Bob Grady, who's going to be your assistant governor next year.
Wow.
So I'm real delighted about that. So
Great.
good. And you've got an awesome president-elect. What can I say? He multitasks, and he could be a bartender or he could lead a club. But Andy does it all. And so you have a wonderful year coming forward.
Great.
Good.
Well, we're excited. Thank you so much, Anita. All right. If there's any other announcements? Yes, Bobby D.
On April 9th, we'll be doing the road cleanup. That's Saturday, April 9th. There'll be more reminders of that, but we had an incredible turnout last time we did it. And we'll again go out to breakfast afterwards together, which was really fun at Finney's Landing.
Great. Yeah, I think we knocked it out in about 8 or 9 minutes or something like that. It was really quick. So, all right. Well, with that being said, I'm really excited for our presentation today. Part 3 of a really exciting series, very topical. And so I'm going to call on Honorable Al to come in and introduce our program speaker.
Well, when you come more than once or twice to our club as a presenter, your introductions become really short. And so, Mike? I want to tell you too, while you're on your way up here, Bob Salvatore is a Tucson High Badger. So, Mike and I can appreciate that. Are there any more Badgers in here? Oh, well, too bad. Mike Margolis.
Thank you, Al. I appreciate that. So, as we say at Tucson High, once a Badger, always a Badger. Al, thank you.
Can you pull that down a little bit?
Pull the microphone down. How about that? We'll try. Can you bring up my first slide? This was my last slide. Last time I saw you in January. And there's not much I can say, which I could say better than Joanne did with her prayer. I think we're all thinking about this. And it's kind of like the elephant in the room, wherever you go. So Joanne, thank you very much on that. I'm going to talk about the part of the war. Hold on. I'm going to talk about the part of the war that none of us ever learned in school. And this is the lead up to both from Japan and Germany entering the war. Remember, the war started a long time before we got into it. Again, we're talking about a conflict that took 60 million lives and encompassed some 55 different countries. So each one of these presentations is just a small part of it. In Japan, Hirohito is the leader. He's a crown prince at 15, born 1901. He is a demigod, not God, Gog, but God. He's looked upon as God. And common people in Japan never look at the emperor. If he comes, you turn your back. You're not allowed to look at him. He has that much control. But in Japan, the militarists are on a divine mission. What they want to do is take Japan into war and dominate all of Asia. And too often, political chaos, economic disaster, and war become bedfellows. And all of this happens at a time of a worldwide depression, not just in our country, but all over. In this part of the world, Japan is probably more industrialized and more Western than any other. They wear Western garb for the most part. And a good deal of their success has to do with indoctrination. These are Japanese Boy Scouts, and they're taught Bushido, the code of the warriors. And what that basically says is that your highest honor is to die for the emperor, and that a person that would surrender is lower than a dog. Women are also trained to defend the home front. 1914, Japan looks like this. It's a relatively small country. They have previously annexed Korea. I've got to try and do this a little better. They previously annexed Korea as far back as 1910. And all they really did was land and come aboard. Leading the militarists is Tojo, and he is in very strong control of the country at this time. Although there is an emperor, the militarists still have their way. At the end of the war, we'll try Tojo for war crimes. He'll attempt to take his life by poisoning. American doctors will save him just in the nick of time so he can be tried and hung in 1948. They'll invade Manchuria in September 1931. Almost no opposition. They'll invade China in 1937. Again, very little opposition. Depending on who you read, and the numbers are a little soft, the Japanese will kill between 3 and 11 million Chinese. In the city of Nanking, they will take over 300,000 lives. And this is well documented by the press. If you look at the red star, Nanking is about 300 kilometers west of Shanghai. And if you look a little lower where the white star is, that's where Wuhan is. Fighting the air war in China is General Claire Chennault of the American Voluntary Group. And I say they're the American Voluntary Group because they've entered the war before the United States. They are, in fact, mercenaries. Their pilots get paid about 3 times what a normal pilot in the Army Air Corps would get. And they get about $80 in gold bullion for every Japanese plane they shoot down. They take out 296 Japanese aircraft. They lose 11 pilots. Eventually, they'll be absorbed into the regular army after war comes, after we enter the war, and they'll become the 4th Army Air Corps, known as the Flying Tigers. Each man there wears a flag of China. And the interesting thing about these is they're worn on the back of the jackets and sometimes inside the jacket. This flag and what it says is called a blood chit, C-H-I-T. And the reason I bring it up is that they're all serial marked. And if a down flyer is brought into American lines safely, there's a bounty. They can get up to $25,000. Each one of these is serial marked. We did this in every theater of the war in World War II, and so did our allies. So did Britain, so did the Canadians, so did the Australians. This has continued to this very day. We still have blood chits to save our pilots. The China-Burma-India theater is probably the forgotten part of the war. Burma is inhospitable. They have a 5-month-long monsoon season. Allied forces will have as difficult a time with malaria, dengue fever, typhus, beriberi, trench foot, any number of funguses, dysentery, and always leeches. This country has a 5-month monsoon season where it never stops raining. It is mountainous terrain. It is heavily jungled, and there are hundreds of rivers which crisscross it in every direction imaginable. This is the worst place to ever fight a war. You see where the British and Indians are. Let me see if I can see that. Oh, I'm sorry. That always happens. Uh-oh. Okay. You'll see this area right here. These are British and Indian troops. You can see the Chinese and US troops there. Claire Chennault and his guys are up here at Kunming. This is French Indochina. We'll talk about the defense of that area in a little bit. First, I'm going to talk about, I want to talk about the Lido Road also, which is to the right. This is 700 miles of roadway over the Himalayas. One road, you have the Lido Road coming from Lido, China. You have the Burma Road, which is coming from Kunming. This is 700 miles of road being chiseled out of the Himalayas. These are the supply lines that'll feed our troops. This is an almost impossible thing. The other issue is we were flying over the Himalayas. These were called the hump pilots. These are American boys. We lost 590 aircraft and 1,314 crewmen. This was really, this war was really, part of the war was really quite a disaster. Lido Road is constructed by Army engineers and thousands of Burmese, and most of this is hand work. Leading the American effort is this man, General Joseph Stilwell, better known as Vinegar Joe. He has prior Chinese service. He speaks Mandarin Chinese fluently. He fights with his men alongside his men. He's known as a very strict disciplinarian. He's here with Chiang Kai-shek and Madam Chiang. Leading the British effort at the first part of the war is Major General Ord Wingate. He's a bit of an eccentric guy. He takes long group, deep penetration groups behind Japanese lines. He's with his men who are the Chindits. The Chindits are made up of British regulars, Indian troops, Ethiopians, Sudanese, and my favorite group, the Royal Gurkha Rifles, considered to be the toughest fighting people in the world, most respected. They have a lot of issues. They could be better trained. Most of the men believe that the Japanese are better suited to fight in jungles. They're not really supermen, but it would take a year and a half to prove to the men on the ground that they weren't. Allied troops would be pushed back twice. They'd be repelled by the Japanese. They come back a third time, but they would not get the better of the Japanese until very late in the war. The Japanese would surrender here at the end of the war. They are never defeated. Wingate would die in a plane crash March of 44, and then General William Slim would take over for him. Wingate, by the way, is Wingate and the British officers, British men with him are the only foreigners to be buried at Arlington. This is their grave. We didn't have the forensics to identify one body from another, so they're all together. Here are the Gurkhas today, being reviewed by the Queen. By the way, they have fought in Afghanistan with the Brits. It's said if a soldier says he's not afraid of dying, he's either lying or he's a Gurkha. That knife that you see is called a kukri. It's excellent for cutting your way through the jungle. It's also used for taking heads off. And they did that during the war to the Japanese while they slept. These men are not to be monkeyed with. We would fight the war in French Indonesia using this man to the right. His birth name is Nguyen Sin Kung. Our OSS, which is a forerunner to the CIA, would supply him arms and ammunition to fight a guerrilla war against the Japanese. He was really a communist national, hoping to get rid of the French after the war. We'd know him later as Ho Chi Minh. That's the identity he would assume after World War II. And the French would fight the last battle at Dien Bien Phu. They would surrender to the Viet Minh Army. There'd be about 500 men wounded, which would be given to the Red Cross. About a third of the fighting men, would still be given to the Red Cross. 2/3 of those men would remain as prisoners of the Vietnamese. And all through the Vietnam War, you might remember, there were rumors of these men still being alive. We never did find out. Didn't prove it exactly. The Dutch East Indies falls in December, March. It's not well defended. It's made up of Borneo, Sumatra, Java, the Salive Islands, and New Guinea. On the right, you can see there are women bowing to the Japanese. There are 62,000 men and women who will be taken by the Japanese. Over 19,000 will die in captivity. 2 of us here have Dutch wives. Alan Chesser, put up your hand. 2 of us here have Dutch wives. The Dutch never forget. They really don't. Hirohito would visit the Netherlands in October of 71. All along his parade route, people would jeer him and they would spit on his car. They never forgot. Malaysia would fall in 42. General Percival would get up 136,000 British troops to a Japanese force about 1/3 his size. It was awful. It would fall very quickly. Lastly, Japan would invade Mongolia. They'd only be there a couple of months, May through September. The response to him would be answered by Gorky Zhukov. He's commander of the Soviet 17th Army, approximately 3,800 advisors. They would turn the Japanese back. I bring this back because Gorky Zhukov will be the Russians' greatest officer in World War II. And we'll talk about him when we get to part 4. So a month into 1942, just after we've entered the war, the Japanese have all of this land. Wake Island, Gilbert Islands, Guam, the Philippines, the Dutch East Indies. It's all in Japanese hands and it falls very quickly. We'll talk a little bit about Germany, but we'll have to go deep and talk about World War I as well. The Habsburg Empire lasts for 400 years. It's essentially 10 nations, 10 distinct groups of people in terms of ethnic background and languages. They all keep it together for about 400 years. In 1867, they become a united empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And this lasts until about 1914. I wanted to show you a map on the right. That's basically what it looks like right now. You can see Russia to the far right, Ukraine in yellow, and Belarus above them, Poland to the far left, Moldova on the bottom. That's where we're at right now. Hold it, I've missed something here. Somehow I've missed a slide. I've missed Franz Ferdinand and his wife being assassinated. That's the start of World War I. He's assassinated by 6 Serbians are involved. 6 Serbians are involved in the plot. World War I will end eventually with the Versailles Peace Treaty. That's November 11th. This is what we call November's Day. That's why we call Veterans Day is on November 11th. It's actually the day World War I came to an end. And a lot of historians will tell you that the seeds for World War II were really planted right here. We take a look at Germany, you see the area to the left, which is the Rhineland. That's taken away from Germany and it becomes a buffer between Germany, Belgium, and France. And then to the right is the Sudetenland. These are Sudeten mountain range. This is a natural barrier between Germany and Czechoslovakia. Again, this is for the safety of Czechoslovakia. The Rhineland is for the safety of Belgium and France. World War I ends. Germany is in chaos. They're required to pay $132 billion in gold-backed reparations. The country is broke. They will suffer financial, political instability, unemployment, hyperinflation. devaluation of their currency. 1923, they'll issue a new currency called the Rentenmark, which is based on the price of wheat. Nothing really saves them. 100,000 marks will equal $1 American. That's them stacked up there on the left. 1922, a German loaf of bread's 50,000 marks. And Black Friday in our country, 1929, will bring about worldwide depression. Out of the chaos, there are some 60 different political parties in Germany. Out of the chaos, and Adolf Hitler will join the Deutsche Arbeiter Party, the German Workers' Party. He is a firebrand speaker. No other party has anybody like Adolf Hitler. And in 1929, he demands that they change the name to the Nazi Party. This is a photo taken in 1930, and you can see that it's been touched so that his face is a little whiter and brighter than anybody else's, as if somehow there's some kind of divine leadership here taking place. In 23, Hitler and his cronies will try and stage a takeover of the Munich police station. This is called the Munich Beer Hall Putsch. And in Munich, beer halls are areas where people give political speeches. So they did their best and rallied up a number of people. He had a number of people with him. They tried to take over the Munich police station. It all failed. Hitler was the first one to run away. One or two of them were injured. They were all arrested. They were all tried. Hitler sentenced to 5 years at Landsberg prison, where he writes Mein Kampf with Albert Speer. He serves 9 months. Well, Hitler and the Nazi Party decided to bide their time and get into politics, essentially. And a number of Nazis are elected to the German parliament. Hitler becomes a very powerful, and eventually he's appointed as chancellor by von Hindenburg. Hindenburg dies in August 2nd, 1934. There has been and continues to be some doubt about whether he died of natural causes or whether he was poisoned. He was not in good health, however, so I have to mention that as well. This is where the Nazis take over. You've heard a lot about the burning of the Reichstag. The Nazis set the fire, and they arrested a couple of Dutch communists for it. And Marinus van der Lubbe on the far right is convicted and put to death very quickly. But it gives the Nazis a chance to take martial law, suspend all laws. And this is really where World War II and the Holocaust ends up starting. Especially 1934, the Night of the Long Knives, 3,000 people are arrested or murdered. And they're all people that opposed Hitler. They are all the people that understood who Hitler was, or anybody that crossed him or had a different opinion. And they were all sent at that time, they were all sent to Dachau, which had first been opened as a place to send political dissidents and would later be a death camp. Hitler becomes chancellor in 1933, and in 1936, they simply march into the Rhineland. There is no shot fired. They're a German-speaking group, and they support Hitler. And then they annex Austria, Hitler's birthplace. Again, all they do is march in. Nobody says anything. The next chapter is a little more precarious. It's pretty clear that war is coming to Britain. And Neville Chamberlain flies to Munich to have a meeting with Hitler. Along with him are Edouard de Laudier, who is a diplomat representing France. And they call this the Munich Peace Conference. And essentially what they do is Britain and France sign a non-aggression treaty with Hitler so that he can enter the Sudetenland. That was the area set aside to protect Czechoslovakia. So essentially what they've done is they have given Czechoslovakia to the Germans. And in time, that's exactly what will happen. Neville Chamberlain lands at the aerodrome. You can see a a newsreel of this. He's waving this and he says, I have here an agreement signed by Herr Hitler agreeing to peace in our time. Nothing could have been further from the truth. The person that understood that the best was Churchill. His words are down there. Churchill also wrote later that Chamberlain tried to trade his honor for peace and in the end lost both. Oh, I love him. So this gives you, here is the Sudetenland again on the map surrounding Czechoslovakia. And here they are. Here they are marching into Sudetenland. Let me go to the old map. I think it could still be Czechoslovakia or it's Germany. I have a hunch that it's Germany now, unless they lost it. Well, the inevitable would happen. Eventually, they would invade Czechoslovakia. And if the Sudetenland had never given up, that might not have happened. After that, Hitler meets with Stalin and they sign a non-aggression treaty. Treaty is that Stalin will allow Hitler to invade Poland. The reason he does that is the two agree to split Poland in half later. Now, there's a lot of people in the German army and a lot of people in Germany at this time thought that invading Poland was going too far. And a lot of people thought that the world was going to stop Hitler, but it never did. Now, war breaks out because both Britain and France are allies of Poland. So now they're in the war. And Poland is not prepared for war at all. Picture on the right is a standard Polish infantryman. That long thing on his back is an anti-tank weapon, by the way. They charge tanks on horseback with swords. They don't have a chance against the Germans. Germany will cross Poland in 10 days. In 30 days, they will control all of Poland. The period that ensues is called the Phony War. And it's called the Phony War because nobody is ready to go to war. Certainly not the Brits, and certainly not France. But Britain knows war is coming. At the same time, Germany is planning Operation Sea Lion. This will be the land invasion of Britain. They can't do it immediately. They have to build amphibious craft in order to do it. And they understand from a tactical point of view, they must have superior air power. So you'll find that during this period, the Brits increase plane production. They know a war is ahead. They're stringing concertina wire along the beaches. They're building tank traps. They know that they're going to be in the war very quickly. Chamberlain will be defeated. Winston Churchill will come into office. Thank goodness. In the same day that he comes into office, the Germans invade Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France. Imagine your first day in office, this happens. And in the first year, you'll have three major challenges: Dunkirk, the Battle of Britain, and the Blitz. Dunkirk's the evacuation of the British Army. About 340,000 troops have to be evacuated. In the end, they'll take about 20 or 30,000 French with them at all, but they'll leave everybody else behind. It's not, if you saw the movie Dunkirk, it's not like that. The Brits would lose 6 destroyers, 200 small craft, and 100 planes. This is the worst tragedy that ever befell the British Army. They left all of their equipment behind. Most of the men got on boats only with their rifle. All the ammunition was left. Every piece of equipment they owned was left. Britain would not have an easy way to defend itself afterwards. Paris would fall June 14, 1940, and it would surrender June 22nd. And the Germans do exactly what they did in World War I. They go through Belgium and then France, and at this point in time, they have pushed the French and the British to the coast at Dunkirk, where they're rescued. The Battle of Britain was essentially the air war. It would last for 113 days, July 10 through October 31. What you probably didn't know is they weren't alone in fighting the Battle of Britain. There'd be a small group of Americans. There'd be Czechs who were immigrants, along with Polish pilots who were immigrants after leaving their countries in the war, and they would help as well. These are the men that Churchill would say never was so much owed by so many by so few. They lost about 30% of the men were lost in the Battle of Britain. 23,000 civilians killed, 32,000 wounded. They'd lose 1,542 pilots, 422 wounded, 1,744 aircraft were lost. The Germans would lose even more. What won the battle for the Brits was radar. They could tell 100 miles away from the shore when and where the Germans were coming and when they would be over Britain. This would enable them to scramble their planes. Their planes could stay in the air a lot longer. The German planes could only stay in the air over Britain for about 30 minutes because they had to head back over the channel. The Germans didn't know at first that they had radar, and then after they found out they had radar, they started bombing those installations. At one time, the Germans thought they'd knocked out 8 of them, and they hadn't knocked out any of them. And as quick as they were being knocked out, the Brits were rebuilding them. The first American to die in the RAF is this man, Billy Fisk. He's kind of an internationally known guy. He was the captain of the United States bobsled team in the 1928 and 1932 Olympics when they gold medals. Educated at Cambridge, married to a very well-known English lady. If you go to St. Paul's, you go to London, go to St. Paul's, you have to go there. You'll see this plaque honoring Billy Fisk. There he is. The Blitz is the bombing war. And the Germans start out bombing Britain first in the daytime and then at night because the RAF is opposing them and shooting them out of the sky during the day. So they end up firebombing Britain at night. London will take 57 nights in a row. They'll be firebombed by the Germans. Of the 43,000 killed, most of them, half of them are Londoners. They'd also bomb other cities. You see Coventry and Manchester are industrial centers, very important to the war effort. They'd bomb Liverpool and other cities as well. But London would take the brunt of it. To the right is St. Paul's after a night of bombing. It's the most important structure one of the most important structures to the British. There was a Roman temple on this site in about 400. There's always been a church there. This is the last rendition of this church designed by Sir Christopher Wren in 1867. This has a lot of meaning to the Brits. To the left is what Coventry looks like today. It's been preserved as a monument to the war. And to the right is St. Paul's. And it actually did get hit. Bomb came through the dome, through the floor, into the crypt. And if you go to St. Paul's, go into the area under the floor of the crypt. This is where the greatest patriots of Britain are buried. Some are in the ground, some are above ground in sarcophagi. This is an incredible thing for you to see. If you see the dome, That is St. Paul's, and all of the air around it was lost in the war. Quite a miracle that remained. 3 minutes from St. Paul, you'll see this monument to the firefighters. They lost 2,500 people fighting fires. In a lot of the war, they just simply let the fires burn themselves out. They had not enough people to put them to fight the fires. You'll also be interested to know on 9/11, there is also a memorial here to our first responders. Most of it is held at St. Paul's because this monument occurs in a very small residential area. I found it by accident when we were in London. It's not 3 miles away from St. Paul's. Well, I want to know if you have any questions. This is one of my favorite pictures of the war. This is a 19-year-old woman working in a London motor pool. You know who she is? That's her. All right, Mr. Chesser.
Mike, there was mention of German invasion of Denmark and Norway.
Yes.
Presentation, and that Sweden was possibly in the neutral.
Yes.
But where did Finland fit in to all of that?
You know, there was no fighting in that particular area. The Germans just simply landed. They simply landed at their docks and unloaded. And they pretty much acquiesced to German rule the whole war. They didn't fight. There were, in fact, some people that joined the German army, and they were part of Operation Barbarossa. And some of these people would also be defending on D-Day at the beaches. But they weren't anxious to die for Germany. They were some of the first people to surrender. Yeah, they did. Yeah. From a strategic point of view, they needed their docks.
Oh, yeah. Real quickly, Mike, then, switching to the Pacific, did the Japanese meet any, obviously occupied all of the South Pacific at some point, right? Did they meet any opposition at all? Or did they just occupy all those islands?
Okay. You know, one of the reasons the Japanese were able to advance as quickly as they did is there really was very little opposition. That was the case in French Indochina. Same with the Dutch colonies. There's kind of a residual military force to keep order there, more like a state police force than anything else. They simply didn't face a whole lot of opposition. It wasn't that they were so powerful or great on the battlefield. In those particular areas, they fell relatively quickly. There was a valiant fight on Wake Island. That was American territory. But most of these places, they took over easily without too much conflict. I mean, the French didn't fight them. You know, we just let them take the land and surrendered. What's that? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they weren't able to put up much of a fight. They were easily conquered by the Japanese, who were so far ahead of them militarily. Yes, sir.
And we have time for just one more question. This is great.
I know this calls for speculation, but had Hitler not double-crossed Stalin, do you think Stalin would have come in on the side of the Allies? And how would that have affected the war had he not?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know that I can answer it. I will tell you, the Russian line has been, after the war and up to this very day, is that they are the ones that won World War II. And although that's quite an exaggeration because they never fought in most of the war that the Allies did. But it's not an exaggeration to the extent that Hitler lost 70% of his army and 70% of his best army in Russia. So We can thank the Russians for that. We supported them in that war through the Lend-Lease Act as much as possible. And it all goes back to that old adage that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Stalin was never really trusted by the Allies. We knew he was as two-faced as he could possibly be, but he was very, very shrewd. And certainly by the end of the war, he was a lot smarter than, let's say, Roosevelt was. I mean, he tricked them all. Churchill was the only one that understood exactly how devious Stalin was. The other thing, just one more thing on if I can, you know, the Russians claimed after the war and to this date that they lost more than anybody else in the war, perhaps as many as 20 million people. But the numbers can't be backed up anywhere. There were probably 10 million people that Stalin killed himself who were Russians. And this goes all the way back from purges, which started in 1920, all the way up to the time when they would be invaded by the Germans. So, okay, anything else? All right, thanks very much. All right.
All right. Well, that was another great presentation. Thank you so much for doing this, Mike, and filling us all in. And Mike, and you've heard this a few times already, but we just want to say thank you. And so as a token of our appreciation, our foundation will donate to Rotary International to have 25 children vaccinated against polio, which is our primary cause as an organization. So thank you so much for joining us again. All right. Well, yeah, we are running tight on time, so I'm going to limit the remaining time to a Queen of Hearts. And I think, Pablo, you are up for that. Andy's seated right over there.
Hello. So oh, thank you. So we're up to $1,800, 1805. We have 35 cards left. So it's pretty good. And the winner is, yes, Mr. Blue Skies himself. Cannot.
Every week, go online. Every week, go online. You have an opportunity to come up and embarrass yourself. Hearts, 4 of them.
Looks like we're still going. Mr. Blue Skies didn't end it this time. But Andy does make it. Yeah, so Andy likes to buy like crazy, so maybe you guys should too. More of the story.
Thank you, Pablo. Our deepest sympathies, Andy. See you next week. So that does it for today. I want to thank Mike again for joining us and wonderful information. So I see Maria Elena's hanging out there behind you. So maybe we'll see you soon again. And I want to remind everyone, please sign up for the appreciation event. Thank you, Michael and Pat, for putting it together. And that's the 27th. That's Sunday from 11 to 2 to 1 to 1. All right. Maybe we'll keep it going to 2. So yeah, 3. So and then mark it on your calendars as well. June 25th and 26th, the installation of our prestigious district governor. So excited for that. And Rose, I want to thank you. Welcome to our club. And Pete, it's great to see you as well. And I think that's going to do it for us. Oh, sorry. Oh, Al, you have something to tell us, is what I'm being told. Well, we're going to make, I guess, an exception. We're short on time for a sergeant, but it sounds like. Hey! 8 pounds. Oh my goodness. And how's mom doing? Oh, that's great. Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Name? Georgia. Okay. Well, congratulations, Al. Thank you so much. We'll please pass along our love to Sharon, and congratulations to you and to mom and everyone. All right, great. Well, we appreciate that. All right, thank you, Anita, for letting us know. And I guess that's going to do it for today. So thank you all for joining us. Next week, we have another good speaker as well. So hopefully we'll see you then, and all those on Zoom. Hopefully we can see you here in the flesh some point soon. And with that, I guess if we can bring up the four-way test, if I can ask you all to please rise and recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. We know, all right? All right. All right. So here we go. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everybody.